is up, everybody? My name is Justin Alvarado, and welcome to the MVP podcast. And today I am joined by a professional athlete who's into the hobby, of course. And it's my honor to have this man on the show. He has played for a number of teams, such as Wake Forest. He's also played here, of course, in the UAAP for National University, and he's played for FIBA. And of course, he is a member of Gilas Pilipinas. So this is pretty exciting to talk to this guy. This guy also has a YouTube channel that I also watch from time to time. He analyzes the hobby on a very deep level. So, yeah, should be a pretty exciting episode. So, without further ado, everyone, please welcome Mr. Troy Rike.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to talk about the hobby. Once again, thanks for having me. I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. It's not every day that I get to talk to, you know, someone like you.
A good sports card collector.
Of course. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just have a maybe to start things off. Um, I guess there is a prevailing theme nowadays wherein okay, it's given the hobby is getting a lot of traction. It's a lot of people are getting into it. Um, but specifically, I kind of noticed a trend wherein sports cards have been there ever since. It's been there for the longest time. But some people started collecting as kids. Some people started collecting at an early age, and then when the hobby started booming, a lot of people came back. Not just people who started brand new, right? And if I'm not mistaken, you came back to the hobby as well.
Yeah, recently, like about a year ago, I got involved back again.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like to ask. Yeah. Why? I mean,
Wow.
you play a lot of basketball, of course, and why the sudden interest to get back into the hobby?
Um, well, I think the first one is like, I don't know. Basically, my two of my best friends ever since I was growing up are like big time sports card collectors. Um, One of them actually like worked for the company and he placed the winning bid on the LeBron James card that went for $1.8 million.
No
So
way!
yeah, so they're like big
Wow.
time, big sharks. I always joke with them like I'm let little shark have a little piece of the pie. So they've been telling me for the longest to get involved. And just to be honest, like I was like a little bored. And then also I got really excited about this year's rookie class, and I just
Mm,
really wanted to get involved with it. So I had some time on my hands, and I started getting into it, and I just really started enjoying it. I loved it when I was a kid. Oh my God, I was so into it. I would just sit on YouTube and watch box breaks forever. And once I found it, and I think a lot of people who are getting back into the hobby say the same thing, so
mm.
it's changed so much. And I think honestly, it's better. It's better now than it was, besides the fact that it's so hard to find retail just to rip and have fun with. It's a really complex and interesting hobby. So once I kind of understood what was going on and I saw how much fun I could have with it, I just decided to get back in, and I'm so happy I did.
That's great. Wow. I'm curious. You touched up upon. You said the hobby is better now, right? In what sense is it better now compared to when you were
Yeah,
a kid?
now that I say that, I'm definitely gonna get some heat. People are gonna be like, I can't even Prism basketball is $1,000. How are you gonna tell me it's better now? I would just say from the like investment standpoint,
Yes,
in
makes
terms of
sense.
like the fact that there's graded cards now. I remember like looking at like the Beckett guide, and that was the price, and it would stay there for the whole year. Now the market is so dynamic.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that you can see, that's one of the most fun things for me. And maybe, like I said, I might get some shade for that not being, I do enjoy collecting. But I think the fact that you can invest in Tyler Hero almost like a stock and on a day-to-day basis, it's
Uh-huh.
just liquid, you get in and out, and you see how things change, and you can, it really challenges you to use your brain, and that's something I think is really cool. Also too, I've been shocked seeing, I mean, I don't want to speak for people here in the Philippines, but being involved with the community here, it's shocking how being in the Philippines is like, you can do so much still in the community. You can buy
Yes,
from people from Belgium. I see people getting cards from Belgium. And as soon as new releases come, it's right here in the Philippines. If someone wants a box of Prism, they can get it whenever they want. Um, and I would imagine, I don't think that was the case back when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like 2002. I don't think
definitely.
that would have been the same. So the globalization aspect of it is also really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because from an investment standpoint, yeah, the profit you can make off of sports cards, it's crazy. When I first heard about the profits that you could make, I was just shaking my head because I was in disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I love how you touched up upon the fact that the hobby has changed now, where it's
Yeah.
liquid, everyone can flip, it's accessible, and I mean, let's face it. I mean, maybe for better or for worse, or if people hate it or if people love it, it's just if you look at it from an investment standpoint, it's just more fun than stocks.
Yeah. And the other thing too I wanted to say on that is another big thing that's happening is like sports gambling is becoming a huge thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And I like, it's a tough subject for me because I know friends personally who literally like have had their lives destroyed by sports gambling and gambling in general.
Yeah,
So that's not for me to say I hate sports gambling because I think it's cool. Like anyone who's ever bet, even $5 with one of their friends watching a meaningless game, that becomes the most fun thing in the world. So I think that's really cool. But that's one of the big things I believe about in sports cards is I think it's a fun way to like feel that attachment to the game a little bit more, like having a little skin in the game, but at the same time, like you're not destroying your whole life. Like I
yes,
really would say to anyone, like if you, I've said it before, like sorry I keep using the Tyler Hero example. He's one of my favorite players. But if you believe in the Heat that they're going to win the championship, like buy a Tyler Hero card. That's cool that you get to hold that and like have that card and have a little skin at the game. But you're not going to lose $100 or even worse, $1,000 that people are putting on this stuff that you don't have to lose.
definitely. I agree because, um, yeah, of course, we run a business. Yeah, my valuable player, and I got a lot of questions from relatives asking, is that gambling or what are you
Yeah.
exactly doing, right? And I think the main difference that I always answer is the difference of gambling and investing is, and when you invest, you actually put some time in research into whatever it is that you're investing in, right? Because I think, for example, let's say you bet on the Boston and the Heat series, right? Put some money there, 50-50, you win or you lose. When you invest in a sports card, like let's say Tyler Hero, that's something that can appreciate over time because if you believe in the potential of Tyler Hero, like sky's the limit for the price that you can sell it for later on.
100%.
Yeah. So I just like to, I guess, follow up on that in a sense. I've seen some of your YouTube videos, and yeah, your work is amazing. Yeah, guys, support Troy Rike's channel, by the way.
Trike, Rike 415 sports cards on YouTube. Definitely check it out.
Right, there you have it. um, yeah, I remember your video on, I think it was your mistakes. I think 5 mistakes in the sports card hobby, and you touched up upon um, the graded cards being better than a raw rookie patch auto, something like that.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, can you? I mean, for me, I have my own opinion, and For me, yeah, I do agree. But for the listeners who are just joining us now, or just to give a sneak peek of what your channel or what your first video is actually really about, can you expound on that a little more?
Yeah. And the first thing I'll say before I answer that, especially because I've been talking so much about like the investment profit side of it, collect what you like. And I think it shouldn't be, but like it's just what I think. I think your number one priority should be having fun. So
Yes.
if you want to collect rookie patch autos, or you think something is better than something else, feel free to buy it. I do that plenty of times. I'm just gonna, on my channel and maybe in this particular interview, I try to give what I think is the best investment strategy. So what you're talking about was rookie patch autos. When I first got into the hobby, I saw these Prism cards and I was like, why would I spend, $500 for a graded Prism card when I can get like an out of 25 rookie patch auto? It's literally signed by the guy. It has a triple patch, all this stuff. It just made no sense to me.
Same thoughts.
Um, yeah, yeah. But the tough thing about that is it's just harder. It's harder to move. It's not as liquid and it doesn't appreciate the same way because, the prisms, it's just so easy to track. If you go on eBay and you look at the completed listings, it's easy to see. I mean, they have it out there too. If you buy these certain like market movers tools, you can see exactly how they appreciate and you can get in and out quickly. I can't really explain why. Sorry, so I apologize for being kind of all over the place, but it's just a better investment vehicle. It's easier to buy and sell. And whether I like it or you like it or not, that's what the market values right now. So I bought these amazing cards. I gave in my video, I gave the example, I bought a Brandon Ingram at a 25 RPA for like $200. Beautiful card. Cornerstones, I love it. I could maybe get 275 for that card I spent $200 on. While if I had just bought his Prism or Optic Hollow, that card appreciated almost 100%. So you just have to know that that's the state of the hobby. That's what it is. And if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, you have to look at these certain cards, the optics, the prism, that are kind of like not the gold standard, but just the best trackers of the market.
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So, would you recommend, let's say, okay, for the season collectors, most of the time they know what they're doing. They get the graded cards, they get the PSA 10s, and then sell it later on and stuff like that. But for a complete beginner, with, let's say, someone who can play around with $1,000, 50K, complete
Okay.
beginner, $1,000. What would you say should be like a general strategy for that person?
A general strategy for that person. Um, First, I would say, and this is kind of an easy one, but like do your research 100%. I didn't do as much as I could. I talked to all of my friends and also people in the Philippines who are getting into it. And if you only have $1,000, 50K, and you spend $100 on a card that you shouldn't have bought, that's 10% of your budget gone right away. So basically, my advice would be don't rush into anything. Um, and I would recommend, from an investment strategy, make sure you're buying desirable cards. Because I think, especially if you have a small budget, actually, and I felt the same way, you kind of want to like nickel and dime and save every cent you can, which is good. But if you're trying to do that, a lot of times you're buying these cheaper cards that are just never going to hold value and they're never going to appreciate. So
Yes.
I knew friends who wanted to invest in LeBron James, and they're like, "Oh, I spent $20 on this Prism from 2017 or something like that," which is fine if you want to hold it and it's a cool card like for you to collect. But that card in my opinion, is not really, especially raw, is not going to appreciate when they win the title.
Yes.
You would be better sent maybe spending, maybe it's a big part of your budget, but you spend $300 on a graded LeBron rookie card. And then, whatever else you want to do, maybe you believe in John Morant, buy an optic raw for $30. Maybe you look at a Zion, then you go get another graded card. I guess my advice would be like, do your research and make sure you're buying solid cards instead of just rushing out and being like, I'm going to pick up a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and just throwing money around. Make sure you have a solid plan and you understand 100% what you're investing in.
All right. I'm curious because you you really emphasize research, right? Which is an important thing in the hobby.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do your research, you're basically gambling, right?
Mhm.
So I'm curious because everyone does their research differently. For me personally, I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I look at the sales volume, pop reports, and highlights basically, and watch the games every now and then if I can. Just try to get all the info I can on the player. But I'm curious from a professional athlete's perspective, especially when you prospect someone, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, of course, when you invest in a Giannis rookie card, chances are in the long run you're gonna make money. If you invest in a LeBron James rookie card, chances are you're gonna make money as well in the long run, right? But when you prospect, it's a little bit riskier, but the reward is much better, of course, compared to established superstars. So, as a professional athlete, do you have like a better eye for prospecting, or I'm curious, what's your thought process when you look at the more riskier or unestablished players?
Yeah. Um, I think maybe like a tiny, tiny bit. Because you also have to remember, like, these guys who are in these NBA front offices who run the draft are literally the best and smartest people in the world when it comes to prospecting, in a sense. And if you look at their draft history, they're right maybe like 10% of the time, 15% of the time.
Yeah.
So it's really, really hard, even if you are like a professional athlete. I think I see it a little bit. Um, okay, I promise this is going to be the last time I bring up Tyler Hero, but I could see with him, you ask anyone, like, he is like built different. He has that, like, you need that fire, that confidence, that swagger in you to become like a superstar, to become an elite scorer. And I think maybe I was a little bit better at seeing that because, I'm on the court and I play with these high level guys. But I think honestly, my biggest advantage is not when it comes to prospecting, is not necessarily knowing how good the player is going to be, because no one really knows. But it's more about knowing the team and knowing how the NBA works and what is going through players' heads. So, for instance, like for Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker on the Celtics, he is, as a defensive player, is just not going to get it done. When you have a person that's kind of like a liability like that, and the Celtics actually, maybe making me eat my words a little bit. They're doing pretty well. They got further than I thought they would, but in my opinion, like, I can pretty confidently say they're not a championship team this year. Or you look at Devin Booker in Phoenix. He's going to get out of there soon. Players want to play with Devin Booker, not only because he's talented, but because he's the type of player who can fit in easily in their system. There's certain players, and it's hard to compare Devin Booker and James Harden, but I think James Harden is going to stay where he is. It's hard to kind of move James Harden onto your team and have him just kind of fit in. Devin Booker could play with an Anthony Davis. He could play with a Giannis, and then that's a championship team. So I think that's probably my biggest thing, is knowing how certain pieces fit in together and who players are going to want to play with. Because that's one of the biggest, I think the best thing to do, like, if you're looking to invest, it's so hard to know, like, to predict the next Giannis, you want to invest in Sekou or whatever. That's really, really hard. No one knows. But I think it's a little bit easier to see, okay, where are the chess pieces going to start to move? And then you can make money more on team movement rather than necessarily like someone like Giannis or Sekou booming. Because if you were able to predict that at a high rate, you would be a GM in the NBA.
That's a very good point. I love that analysis. So that begs the question, of course. If you don't mind answering,
Yeah.
who is in your personal collection? Um, I guess everyone who's going to go on this podcast will eventually answer that question.
Uh,
But yeah,
yeah.
I'm curious. Everyone who's going to watch is probably curious. So yeah, who's in your personal collection?
I would say my main one is John Collins, my former teammate at Wake Forest.
Oh,
Always,
wow.
if there's ever an exclusive card of his, I'm picking that up. That was one of my biggest first purchases, especially like I mentioned. I tried to kind of nickel and dime when I first got into the hobby. Like spending more than $100 on a card was just the most crazy thing I'd ever heard. And I got a John Collins Prism Gold Auto out of 10 from his rookie year.
Wow.
That's currently at PSA right now, so hopefully that comes back at 10. But that's kind of like I'm hoping that's going to be like the crown jewel of my collection. Um, so that's probably my main PC. Tyler Hero is kind of becoming less of a PC because I'm gonna have to start moving his stuff because it's too expensive now. Like I bought like his Prism Silver for $50 and now it's at $350. So it's kind of time to move on that one. So
Congratulations.
unfortunately, he might get the axe from my PC just because he's too good. And then my other one in soccer cards, I'm a huge Barcelona fan, especially from their youth system. La Masia, like the players they produce. So not so much Messi, like he's obviously one, but once again, too expensive. But you have like the Gerard Deulofeu, Adam Traore, Christian Teo, some of these players who never really became stars, but I remember watching them as 17-year-olds play at Barcelona. So my goal is eventually to have all those products of that youth system, of that youth academy, like have all their rookie cards on my PC.
So, do you mainly collect basketball and soccer, or are there any sports that you collect as well?
Yeah, basketball and soccer are my main two right now. Um, football was huge. American football when I was a kid was the biggest thing I collected. Um, but those are my main two right now. I thought about like I like baseball, I like American football, but that's my other advice. You can't spread yourself too thin. If you, especially for like, I think I'm blessed to have more time on my hands, maybe from like a downtime perspective than people who work like a 9 to 5. And I don't have enough time to keep up with 4 sports. So if you have a full-time job, you have a family, and you think you can
Yeah.
keep up with 4 sports, you're yourself. So you have to leave time for that research and everything. So that's why I try to stick to.
Um, just to follow up on that, because here in the Philippines, basketball is really the, I guess, the dominant sport because Filipinos just love it. And I think in terms of popularity, yeah, basketball is number one, and maybe soccer would be
Mm,
number two. But
yeah,
I see a big difference in the market, wherein basketball market in the Philippines it's crazy already,
yeah,
but the soccer market isn't crazy that crazy yet. So,
yeah.
is there a difference of your strategy with basketball cards and soccer cards, or do you just treat it all the same?
Yeah. I think soccer is much more opportunity to make profit right now.
Oh,
That's the first thing because if you ask anyone, I'm sure you've been in the hobby for a while. The basketball market is like it's so like optimized and efficient right now. Like for the most part, you're not going to find a player who like you're not going to be like a player who's doing really well and be like, "Oh my god, he's only $5. How does no one know about this player?" Like pretty much anyone who has any type of potential in basketball or as soon as I'm telling you, as soon as there becomes a little murmur that Devin Booker might want out, his price is going to go up so much. So you have to be like really, really ahead of the game and take a lot of risk. if you're going to invest in players and make that type of profit. The soccer market is like all over the place. It's so random. Like if you know the sport, you can make a lot of money. Like just think about what happened. Soccer cards absolutely boomed, and Mbappe got up to $3,000 for a Prism base and a PSA 10. While literally any other player besides Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe was like $50. So people said, wait a minute, why is this a $3,000 card? And then it fell to 1,000 in like 2 weeks. And I knew that. I would be like, okay, Mbappe's good, but he's not 100 times better or 1,000 times better than Kevin De Bruyne. So having that knowledge, I think I'm focusing more on soccer because I feel like there's even more of an opportunity right now. Like people don't even know, for instance, Mason Greenwood is a young striker winger for Manchester United. And basically people are investing in Messi, Ronaldo, Mbappe, and then the current rookies, because that's all they know. That's all anyone's ever talked about. Mm-hmm. Where for me, I'm like, I know the players. I know Kevin De Bruyne, Robert Lewandowski, Marcus Rashford, these players. And I really feel an opportunity that my knowledge is able to really set me apart in soccer, just knowing the players. Where in basketball, I'm not going to like out knowledge anyone. Everyone knows who's good. So I have to be more predictive of what's going to happen, like in terms of players moving. Where in soccer, I just look at it for what it is, and I say, this guy is undervalued, and I just buy.
Okay, what about in terms of liquidity? Because it's easy to move around basketball cards, and what you mentioned, your strategy in soccer, it's actually a huge advantage. But when it comes to the liquidity, especially here in the Philippines, is it something hard, or how do you manage it?
It's harder. It's harder in soccer for sure. Like I'm sure anyone, even in like just the Philippines groups we have here, if you put something for, maybe $10 lower than market price, you can get rid of it in 30 seconds. That's how quickly people snap it up. So you can get in and out of cards really quick. So it's definitely easier in basketball to get out of it. So there's more liquidity. It's more reactionary too. So if you invest, that's a point for basketball. If you like people who invested in Bol, he has one good game, there's your profit. Yeah. I've seen in soccer, even in this past year, people won the Champions League, which is maybe people who don't know, that's like the world championship for soccer clubs. Nothing happened to their prices. Like right now, like it's basically like a World Cup is what you need, or a 4-goal or a hat trick or something it takes a lot. At least from what I'm still a little new, so if we have any Filipino soccer experts here for some reason, please don't roast me in the comments. But I haven't seen the same booms and reactionary effect in soccer. In basketball, it's easier to like I said, for good and for bad, the market is more efficient, which can play to your benefit, but also play to your detriment as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially when you touched up upon the basketball market, because it's volatile. And I guess this topic isn't really something that a lot of people want to talk about, but it's something that's happening right now to the basketball market is prices are going down, right?
Yeah.
And people are going crazy. People are saying like, should we sell everything now? Even in my valuable player, a lot of our clients are getting a little panic.
I can't.
Getting the panic.
Sorry, you have. Yeah.
Like, especially, I mean, Giannis, unfortunately, we all know what happened. So, of course, his prices are going to follow. And the market in general, compared to a few months ago, everything was basically kind of easy money, if you can say it like that, because just buy any superstar, chances are you can make your money in 1-2 months after. Now it's tough because Tyler Hero is going up, but some people are going down even though they're doing well. Like Anthony Davis is doing well. His card prices are going down. People are panicking. So I guess I just like to ask, what are your thoughts on the current market, especially since everything is downtrend?
Yeah. I think you're right. Exactly what you said. Like people were people were buying Ben Simmons in April, and then in August his card was worth triple what it was, even though all he did was play bad. Like that's not, in a sense, you shouldn't be rewarded for that type of investment. So I think people who are new to the hobby, there's a ton of new people, so they're confused. They're like, oh my god, I thought this thing only goes up. But I think in a sense it is a good thing. Like that's the sign of a healthy market, because
Definitely.
nothing can just go up forever. So that's where you'd actually get into more trouble. Like I feel like it gave people a reality check. Like let's say the market had just kept going up and up, people would have been like, I'm pouring every last dime I have into sports cards and I'm never gonna lose it, which would have been like a bad thing to do. So yeah, don't panic. I made a video about this too, so plug number two.
I
But
watched a bit.
this, yeah, this is natural. Like, why would Giannis cards not go down? Like, you have to know. Like, maybe you didn't see it coming. Like, I didn't see him getting eliminated so early, maybe. But it's a natural part of a healthy market, and that's the risk of investing in anything. Like, you have to know it. There's no like gold mines out there. And also, this is what it's always been. The off season, there always is a little bit of a dip. I think this year is a little bit more than usual, but this is naturally what happens. People's attention is elsewhere. But I think if you're smart, it's a good time to buy. That's the other thing I said. You have to really, if you follow your strategy and you know, and you really think about what you're doing, you can minimize your risk. I talked about I'm buying Trae Young optics for $30 each. I've been able to pick up some at 25. I really think like those cards are not going to be selling for less than $20 at the beginning of next season. Like that's, I don't see that happening. Like when you really look at the data and everything. So I'm willing to take that risk. So you just have to, this makes you reevaluate your strategy even more and give you a reminder, like you have to be well researched and looking at the data and you'll be okay. So don't panic. It's going to be fine. Just make sure you reevaluate your strategy and don't just count on things going up just because they always do.
Yeah, I completely agree because I particularly invest also in stocks, real estate, even some cryptocurrency,
Yeah.
and you know it's I completely agree. You know what comes up must come down, but eventually, if you play the long term game, chances are it's supposed to go up if you know what you're doing, right? And I guess I'm curious because let's say, who's a great example? If I'm not mistaken, maybe Giannis would be one of the biggest drops in terms of price, right?
Kawhi's
So,
been crazy. Kawhi was like 50%. That was
oh,
shocking.
okay. So
Yeah.
let's go with
I
Kawhi.
didn't even come up with an example. Keep going. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, let's go with Kawhi, right? I mean, no one saw that coming.
Yeah.
Everyone was just scratching their heads when they got eliminated. So yeah, naturally his prices are gonna drop. So, for example, let's say unfortunately, you bought at the peak, and
Yeah.
now you're down like huge, like maybe, yeah, 50%. Do you recommend, you know what? Let's just bite the bullet, cut our losses here, and then get some other cards instead? Or would you rather, you know what, Kawhi is gonna go up eventually, so hold it?
Um, well, a couple of things. The first thing I'll say is, yeah, definitely hold, because this is not like, maybe it might go down a little more, but in my opinion, a pretty safe bet with these elite guys is the fact that from now until the start of next season, their card is going to go up. Maybe not all the way to the peak you bought it at, but I think it'd be a mistake if someone's like, oh, I'm just going to get out. Like now is pretty close to the bottom. You don't want to sell at the bottom. Um, the other thing I mentioned too, and unfortunately, I'm going to get real disrespectful in this interview. So sorry, people. But I mentioned in my video, if
Go
you
ahead, no
like
worries.
saw Donovan Mitchell have his big game, and you're like, okay, all right, what I need to do right now is buy. They're going to win the championship. Donovan Mitchell, get LeBron out of here. We have the new superstar. Then, like, honestly, I'm not sure sports card investing is for you. Like, some of these things, if you bought at the peak, like, maybe I'm not going to say sports card investing isn't for you, but just take that lesson. Like, that's not the time you should be buying. In my opinion, really the realistic loss right now for most people is like 10 or 15%, which is a very normal loss to take in any
Yeah.
type of investment. That's if you bought like pretty late too. The only way you're at 30% is if you literally bought at the exact peak. So for you guys who are down 10%, if you, like you've mentioned, real estate, stock market, anything, especially crypto, that's not even a blip in terms of losses. You just kind of have to like, and I've been there too, especially I started investing. I invested in stocks like a lot, and I tried to like day trade thinking I was some sort of smart guy when I was in college. And
Uh-huh.
I would literally stare at my phone in class and I'd be like, oh my God, it's down 1%. It's down 1%. I need to sell. You know what I mean? Because seeing, especially for people who are new to investing, seeing negative money, like money go down, is like the worst feeling in the world. Whether
Yes.
it's sports cards or anything, you have to think for the long game. And I'm not telling you to play like Russian roulette out here and not care about losses, but you have to be able to stomach a little bit of losses for you to be successful in absolutely anything you ever invest in.
Yes. Definitely. 100% agree. Okay, so you elaborated on some big losses, but in terms of like the Kawhis and the
Yeah.
Giannis, but basketball is still a game of it's still a physical game at the end of the day, and injuries happen, right? So
Yeah.
what if, I mean, of course, knock on wood, a player that you are very high on and you PC or something, he gets injured and it's a season ending injury and you happen to be holding his cards, what should you recommend to be the action that should be taken?
Yeah. Well, the good news is I don't have to imagine this terrible scenario. I'm actually living it with Kristaps Porzingis. I invested in like
Uh,
I invested in a good amount of his cards because in a sense I was right. Like I said, I told you like knowing like how teams work and everything. I knew the Mavericks were like good. The
yeah.
Mavericks were gonna have a real moment in the playoffs. So I invested in Porzingis because Luka was already like so high. Um, but it goes back to once again you have to have patience and think about like what's going to happen. I think this is and Jaren Jackson too. I'm terrible at picking players apparently. Um, you just have to think about like this is going to be their low point. Um, so just don't panic. Wait for them. Maybe it depends on whether you believe in them or not. Like Jaren Jackson, maybe he has one good game at the start of next season. It might be the time to get out and kind of cut your losses. You definitely should cut your losses at some point. So I guess my advice would be one, don't panic and sell at the bottom. You don't be afraid to cut your losses if it's a player. But third of all, like think about what type of injury is it and what's happening. Like for instance, with Kevin Durant,
Mhm.
torn Achilles towards the end of his career, that's tough. Porzingis, I guess it's a little different with Porzingis because he's a little injury prone, but maybe I'll stick to Jaren Jackson. I think he has a very good chance at coming back at close to 100%, and he has his whole career in front of him. But when you look at guys at like Kevin Durant or Dwayne Wade towards the end of his career, you can kind of see the writing on the wall, and maybe you're like, okay, now's a good time to get out. So just think about like, okay, what are their next couple seasons going to look like? And if you don't see it getting any better, it might be time to get out.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree, especially in terms of people. People can get very impatient, you know.
Yes.
Um, a season-ending injury, and a lot of people think, "Oh no, it's the end of the world. We gotta sell." And yeah, I completely agree because if you know what you're doing and if you do the research, right? I think even if it's a season-ending injury and you think long-term, you should be able to come out fine relatively.
Yeah. And not to hijack your podcast once again and talk about random stuff that your listeners don't want to hear about, but like American football, a bunch of people are investing in it now.
Mm.
Running backs, people are investing so much money into running backs. And you see again and again, you can have a star, literally the best running back in the league, and he gets injured one time, and that is it. He is done. His career is
Yeah.
over. He's never the same. In basketball, you don't really see that as much. Maybe Derrick Rose is an example of someone who kind of like got injured young when they were a star and they never were the same. But the majority of players have had injuries at some point in their career, and then they come back and they're fine. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's a reason to panic. That's not what historically has been the case in the NBA when these players have injuries.
All right. Okay. I am curious. You mentioned a while ago, yeah, right now it's a good time to actually buy, right? Because prices are going down, and this is natural for any type of asset for it to be sustainable in the long run. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned you're pretty high on Trey Young. So, are there any other pickups that you plan to load up on heading into the next few years?
Ooh, market manipulation time. No, just kidding. I wish I had the Gary V powers where I could just pump my own um,
Yeah, Gary
pickups.
V's
Well, right now,
crazy.
the big one I'm trying to do is for the past couple of days I've been bidding on LeBron James tops rookies because they went down like 50%, which is crazy considering he might win the title. I feel
Yeah.
like that's like, especially when you think about too, like okay, maybe that's an $1,000 card, maybe it goes down another 200, but compared to what else, like not to hate on people, but like RJ Barrett silver prisms at this point are almost $1,000 cards. Like that's pretty crazy to me. I'll roll with LeBron. So that's one. Once again, I talked about like how hard it is to predict how good a player is going to be versus how easy it is to see the hype. I think Zion and Trey are just like really easy investments because I think those might be the two biggest names going into next season people are looking to invest in.
Mhm.
So those are the two. And then also, like I said, sticking on the how is the NBA going to move type of deal. Klay Thompson, I think the Warriors are going to figure something out. They're already good as it is, but I see them making some sort of move to get someone good. Ben Simmons, so talented, really cheap for how talented he is. I think he gets in some sort of winning situation soon. Um, and yeah, I guess, yeah, I said Trey Young, but the Hawks in general. I think Cam Reddish, John Collins, even if you guys feel like rolling the dice on Kevin Huerter, maybe. I think that, I think if you're buying right now and you get out right at the beginning of next season, uh, there's a lot of good people to invest in. So I
Yeah.
would go for, but basically I'm looking at like the absolute brightest young stars like Trey and Zion, and then people who are going to be in winning situations next year. Like my friends have been telling me to invest in Karl Anthony Towns, and like that's fine. He's a good player. He's probably underpriced, but he's just not going to be in a winning situation next year. Maybe the year after next, but next year it's just not going to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah. Especially in the West.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Okay, I am curious because Zion is, I would say, a controversial investment because a lot of people think of him as a high risk, high reward kind of play,
Yeah.
given his injuries, right? So I'm curious what makes you sold on Zion because for me, okay, I do have one Zion Prism PSA 10, but I am scared to get more just because of the
Yeah.
injuries. So I think I'm fine with one. But what about you? Like, what makes you so sold on Zion?
Oh, I'm 0% sold on Zion. I'm 0% sold on Zion. But that's kind of like the thing I'm saying. I'm looking to get out of a lot of his cards literally like the first game of next season
Okay, so
because
more
I
of a
think
quick
they'll have
flip.
that much. Yeah, but also at the same time, like, so I'm buying a lot of his optics. You see me mention optic a lot because for me that's the card I know. It's easy for me to see the centering as well.
Yeah,
Not for me
especially with the
during this.
borders.
Yeah, I've already turned into too much of the technical analysis podcast here, but
It's fine.
when
It's
I run the
perfect.
number, yeah, I really do. Like I have Google spreadsheets and I run like you run the numbers, you have simulations, you can do RAND, you can see how things go. I'm buying these Zion optics for $40 and getting them graded. Even if I hit, if I get PSA 10s and let's say 2 out of the 10 I buy, I really think there's a scenario where I sell those 2 cards at the beginning of next season and that pays for the other 8.
Mm.
So that's kind of been my strategy. It is like Zion's so controversial. I think he's so talented, but I really do see a scenario like you said. I'm scared too. I could see him like never being able to play at full strength or play a full game. But I you can set up your strategy in such a way where you minimize your risk. And that's what I'm trying to do with Zion.
That is great. Guys, you should take notes. Like a lot of people, uh, they just have this, I guess, from what I've observed, like from friends, from most people I see, they just basically get, I guess, a general strategy is they get 2 copies of a card. One, they sell when they think the profit is good enough or when they've made twice their money. And then the other one, they just let it run. And I think it's a
Yeah.
very, I mean, it's an okay strategy, but it's not something you can really count on, I would say, especially when you're dealing with like maybe tons of cards. But your strategy
Yeah.
is, my eyes have been opened.
I mean, like I've been a little too cocky on this podcast, so I apologize. Like it very well may not work out for me, but like I think that when you have the proper planning, it's such an with anything. Like when people I've watched these videos because whether it's I'm taking this podcast all over the place, so apologies. Whether it's politics or anything,
That's fine.
you should listen to the other side. If you're a Democrat, go listen to the Republicans. If you're a Republican, go listen to the Democrats. So for me, I went and watched a ton of videos on why not to get cards graded, and the majority of the counterpoints people gave is, oh, it's at PSA too long, and it's hard. It takes a while to research and learn how to like look for good condition cards. And I was like, wait a minute, you can solve that if you just put time in. If you learn how to like grade certain cards, you really research, you look at PSA 10s, and you plan ahead. So yes, my Trey Youngs right now, they're going to be at PSA for a little bit, but I planned ahead. I'm buying them. I'm sending them out right now. So at the beginning of next season, they're here. So that's not just for sports cards, it's for anything. When you plan ahead, you put yourself at such an advantage. So I'm a believer in the power of grading. It's unfortunately tough here in the Philippines. Like that's the really like
Yeah.
that's one of the disadvantages of being here. But in the US, there's really good groups where you can just send it in. It's $12
Yeah.
for a 45-day. And at that point, like just do the numbers yourself. Like make a spreadsheet. Look even just what a PSA 9 is worth. On my spreadsheets, if I get all 9s, I'm coming out ahead. So that's basically how I did it for myself. I'm like, all right, if I get 110, I'm in a good spot. So that just shows once again, like it's not even about being smart or like thinking you know everything, because I don't. I just think I'm good at like planning ahead and like doing the stuff, and that'll help you out a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing your foresight for these things, how detail oriented you are. And I think one of the things that I really admire about you is you're you're contrarian. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of people they're okay. I mean, it sounds pretty bad, but a lot of people they just ride on the hype. You know,
Yeah.
something's popping, right? Um, and I think it's not sustainable because if you get something wrong, and like for example, you were buying some cards at the peak of the past few weeks, months, days, yeah. If you were buying at the peak because you were riding on the hype, then you would be pretty sad right now. But
Mhm.
a contrarian like you, for those of you who don't know what a contrarian is, basically does the opposite of what the
Yeah.
majority does. Um, it's a concept I learned in stocks. You know, it pays off to be a contrarian. But I really admire how you plan ahead, wherein, okay, people are panicking, people are selling, prices are dropping, and you think, okay, now this is the time to buy.
Exactly. I think it was Warren Buffett who said, or it was like some big stock guy. It's be fearful when others are greedy. Be no, yeah, be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy when others are fearful, which
Yes.
is 100% true. Like that's just what it is. And also like that you mentioned me being like a contrarian, but in a sense being detail oriented. Um, Now that I've bored everyone to death with Excel spreadsheets, I'll bring it back to actual basketball. That's been my biggest thing in basketball, being detail oriented. You talked about like I've been lucky to play for like some of the like these amazing teams that maybe necessarily my talent wasn't like at the premier level, but because I was detail oriented, that helped me out so much. Like doing the little things, studying the playbook, like learn your plays, study the opponents, know what their tendency is. That'll help you in everything, not just sports card investing, in basketball and anything. Like having the foresight, putting in the work, being detail oriented, no matter what you do. If you want to, crochet, like you want to be a blanket maker, that'll that'll help you. So that'll be my advice to anyone watching, not just basketball, cards, anything. You will be amazed at what you're able to accomplish when you put in that foresight and you pay attention to that level of detail.
Props to you, man. Like the amount
Sorry,
of knowledge.
I'm being too preachy in this podcast. So, but
No, I
I just like,
mean, like, to be honest, it's really refreshing because so far we've had two episodes. First episode, it was just me and my partners. We just talked about some questions that people had. That's basically it. And then second podcast, we had Slick Rick from Boys Night Out, and it was more of a very personal, I guess, conversation, like his
mm,
preferences, his experience in the hobby. But
yeah,
this is really really informative because especially when you think about the beginners who are going to watch this podcast, they're going to think, oh wow, I can do this, I can do that. We talked about a lot of the nitty gritty details in the hobby,
yeah,
which people don't really discuss. You know, people just talk about the players, what price they buy, what price they sell. That's pretty much it. But
yeah.
man, I mean, even me, I'm pretty happy because I'm learning. So thank you so much, man. This has
Of
been
course. I mean,
really informative.
yeah, for sure. And like, I have so much to learn too, but I've learned a lot. The other thing too, the advice I can give is like, I talk to my friends for like hours about this kind of stuff who have been doing it for a long time. I feel like I learned so much. Um, and like I said, once again, I keep bringing it back to anything, real estate, stocks, anything. You talk to the most successful people in the world, Jeff Bezos, like these type of guys. You say, what's your number one advice? Find someone who knows what they're doing or who's done it before and just talk to them. And you'll learn so much. So like that's the biggest thing I did. Like most of this stuff, like I feel like some of it I kind of like figured out for myself or learned as I went, but talking to other people is the biggest thing you can do in this hobby. And go on YouTube, like you do, like I do. Don't be afraid to comment. Like you comment these guys, like especially that's the thing I love about sports cards and the great thing about the hobby. If you message a some hotshot real estate agent in LA, he's gonna tell you to like kick rocks. I don't want to show, you know what I mean? Like I'm making my own. No,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna waste my time. But every single person I've talked to in sports cars is willing to like share with you and like give you the knowledge. Like that's one of the biggest gifts you can get in the world. Like someone willing to do that. That's the thing I love so much. Like everyone is so friendly and willing to help.
yeah. I really love the community that the hobby has built because I don't know. I mean, people are just nice. I mean, in general. I mean, of course, you can have some not so nice people. You can have some scammers in
Yeah.
anything in life. But generally, the people that I've met in the hobby are just down to earth. Everyone has advice, everyone has an opinion, and it's it's pretty amazing the community that it has built. Even I mean, MVP has been relatively new. Even the small
Mhm.
community that we have, it's amazing the amount of support that people give, and yeah, I'm just so excited that you know people from anywhere around the world, people with different budgets, different goals, different preferences, they just all meet in the hobby, have fun, make money.
Yeah, and I think not to pump up MVP too much, but I think MVP is also like a good way to learn for some people because it's kind of handling like a little bit. Because the biggest thing I've learned too, I feel like I learned so much this playoffs. Like just having when you have the skin in the game and you see how the market goes up and down, you're able to learn so much. So like seeing Prism and PSA 10 and everything, if you guys are beginners, that stuff is like really confusing. And it was
Yeah.
confusing for me too. So don't be afraid to, I'm not going to say like, oh, okay, you have to invest with MVP, but maybe you have someone who helps you out a little bit, like kind of like learn. That's going to be the biggest, that's one of the other biggest things too, like getting that experience, getting like a little bit of skin in the game, and you can see how the market moves up and down, and then that will give you the confidence going forward for you to make more picks, maybe put more money in, or maybe if you feel comfortable enough, do it on your own.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Before we wrap this up, man, this has been great. Yeah. Okay. Everyone's been talking about the playoffs, and of course, I'm curious. Who are your picks from the West, picks from the East, and who do you have coming out on top?
Well, I'll say this, it's a little late in the game, but I've been saying from day one the Heat were going to make noise. Every time they won a game, I was putting in our group chat, I believe in them from the beginning, and I still believe in them. Like, I mean, I guess it's easy to say now that they're 2 up in the conference finals, but I think they will be in the finals for the East. Um, and for the West, I mean, especially after watching that game this morning, I don't think there's any way you're not picking the Lakers. Um, Unfortunately, I do not think the Heat are going to be able to do it against the Lakers. Like, they're on a mission. You can just see like in their eyes, like LeBron and them, like they're not messing around. So I think it's going to be a Lakers championship this year, but next year is going to be really fun. Not to skip too far ahead, but there's so much talent. It's going to be the same thing, except the Warriors are back. Some different players moving. It's interesting. It'll be fun. But I got the Lakers this year. Even though I'm a Warriors fan, I kind of have to give it to them. I think this is going to be their year.
Okay, so you have the Lakers winning it this year. What about just as a basketball fan, as a professional athlete,
Mm.
of course? Who are your all-time favorite players? Not your goat, because I mean it's always
Yeah.
controversial, but just your favorite.
Um, I'm definitely biased. Anything Wake Forest is for sure. Like even before, like I'm not even sure I knew Wake Forest was a school at this point, but like Tim Duncan and Chris Paul were legitimately my favorite two players growing up. Um, Tim Duncan, just the way he affected the game, as like being the ultimate teammate, high IQ, playing hard type of guy. I love Tim Duncan. I like Tracy McGrady a lot growing up. Maybe on the opposite end, like that flash. Like I don't think the league had really seen someone like him before. Um, yeah, so those were the main three, and then now Tyler Hero, John Collins. I really cheer for them. But there's so much talent. I really like. I feel like maybe you'll call me a bandwagon, but like I love to cheer for all the young players coming up because it's so exciting. John Morant, these guys. I think the league is in a really good place. Like we are like I don't think we've ever seen talent like we have right now.
Okay, I guess I just have one last question before we
Go
wrap it
ahead,
up.
man.
Um, I played this game with Slick Rick last time, but let's change it up a bit. Um, let's draft a starting five,
Ooh,
but not in terms of who will win a game 5-on-5. Let's
okay.
draft a starting five wherein those five will be the biggest price gainers for next
Ooh.
season.
Okay, at the end of next season?
By the end of the next playoffs. Okay,
Okay,
let's
end of
extend it to the
okay.
playoffs. You can get first pick. I'll just match up whoever you pick.
Jordan Clarkson, sneaky homer Filipino pick. Um, no, I'm gonna go with Luca, number one actually.
Oh, of course.
His prices have gone down a lot, and I just think like once again, maybe it's not like the Zion thing at the beginning of next season, beginning of next playoffs, everyone's gonna be so excited for Luca. And I think he has a good chance to like progress a little bit and make some noise.
Okay, that's a good pick. I guess for Luca, I'd have to go with Trey Young
Oh, he
because
stole my pick. That's my guy. You got me.
I mean, at his price, I think he has a ton of upside. He can make the playoffs, especially with the East. And yeah,
Mm,
I think they're going to be really good next season. So, yeah.
okay. Um, Next one, I'm gonna go. Since you took Trey Young, I'm gonna take the better version. I'm gonna take Steph Curry.
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's a little late. His prices have actually been, if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the few players who's still been going up.
Oh,
But
okay.
if the Warriors make a run, that's like the 10x, 8x potential type of thing. I think Steph Curry cards, people are going to be like, why the heck was I not investing in this guy?
Okay. So, are you looking at his Topps rookie card or?
Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of tough. Like when the cards are that old, maybe in a good way, there's not as many to invest in, and like the tops are already so expensive.
Yeah.
Um, but that's why I haven't invested though. Like I said, I need to really like sit down and research and be like, okay, what is the right card to buy in this situation? Because for me, it's hard to spend $2,000 on one card. So I need to find a way to get invested.
Hmm. For Steph Curry. Hmm, that's tough. Okay, I think this guy proved he has a ton of upside, but he just fell a little short. So I guess I'd go with Donovan Mitchell
Okay.
because, yeah, he can make the playoffs again. And given the performance he just had, I think, yeah, his prices can go drastically up by next season.
He's really talented. I'll admit I was 100%. Like I said, I'll give you an example right now of how much I don't know. Like I did not think Donovan Mitchell was going to be good at all, especially like we played him in college and
Oh,
he scored
wow.
literally four. He scored 4 points against us. So like you really never know. I was like too small, too little. So and he showed me again this playoffs. I was wrong. I was like I'm not investing anything in Donovan Mitchell. So maybe he'll
Wow.
he'll show me next year.
Okay. You got
Okay, for my
next.
next pick, yeah. I don't want to be too boring and only pick stars, so this is a little bit of my gamble. But I'm gonna say Cam Reddish. If you watch his highlights, that dude is like a souped up Paul George. Like the way he moves, I had no idea. Like if you just watched 30 seconds of Cam Reddish highlights and someone told you he's the best player in the league, you'd be like, yeah, I believe it. Like he's really, really good. He's so inconsistent and he was absolutely terrible at the beginning of last year, but he really turned it on towards the end. So it's risky for sure. I could see him like not having a good year at all, but I could also see him being in that like I'm kind of looking for like the next SGA right now. That player who like maybe didn't have the hugest first season, but in the second season they emerge as like that top guy. So I'm gonna say Cam Reddish.
Cam Reddish is a three or a four. What is he?
He can play both. I think he's so tall. He looks huge on the court when I see the highlights, but he
Yeah.
moves like a three.
Okay.
If you want him to be a small forward, like he can move like a small forward for sure.
Okay. For a small forward, I'll go with a risky pick as well. it's tough, but I think maybe Zion. um,
I guess if we're both going dice rolls, Zion's a good one because he's one of those guys. Like I said, like he could if he has a good year next season. Oh my God, to the
yeah.
moon.
But if he does bad, man, that's going down like 70%. But we'll see.
Scared money don't make no money, so got to go for it.
All right, who's your number four?
Okay, are we going bigs? Is this supposed to be like somewhat of a real lineup?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I need like a power forward now. I can't say John Collins. I talked about him too much. Okay, we'll have a little fun. I'll say Mitchell Robinson.
Okay.
I think that they have a new coach, especially like Thibodeau. I could see him turning Mitchell Robinson into like the anchor of that defense of that team. And if I'm not mistaken, I haven't looked in a little while, but I imagine he's like pretty cheap. So even if he has a little bit of success, I could see those cards going up a lot.
For Mitchell Robinson, I'll go with Michael Porter Jr.
Oh, it's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a risk. May not get the touches that he wants, but if he does, and if he doesn't get injured, I think there's a ton of upside.
He's so good. He's like one of the most talented players in the league. Like there was a reason he was the number one recruit over like everyone.
All right, center.
Center. Center. Centers are so boring. That's why I hate being a center. No, who am I thinking? Um, I'm not sure. I'm put on the spot. I was not allowed to prep for this guy, so don't roast me too much. I'm gonna go with DeAndre Ayton.
Oh, he
Just
was my pick.
off the top. Yeah, I think once again a guy who's like his prices are like pretty low compared to the numbers he's putting up. Um, I think that the tough thing will be if Phoenix doesn't have that much success next year, unless he goes absolutely berserk. I'm not sure I see his prices rising very much. But if him and Devin Booker, and maybe if they got someone else, if they're able to have a little success, it's going to be because no, I don't think anyone's ever watched a DeAndre Ayton game in their life. Like I feel like the Suns are like never on TV besides the bubble. So if he's able to get some eyes on him, people will be like, wow, like we overreacted a little bit just because he was picked before Luka. He's a really talented player.
Okay. Centers are tough. I agree.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I forgot a good one. We'll see if you pick it. Sorry. Go ahead.
all right, because well, from what I noticed, it's usually guards that, or forwards even, that go up a ton. Centers don't really appreciate as fast as the flashy players. So in terms of flashiness, I think if he can stay healthy and if they can have a deeper run next year, maybe Porzingis.
Yeah, yeah. His prices are pretty low right now, so that's a really good chance.
Yeah.
That's a good pick.
All
It'll be
right.
interesting. We gotta. Can we get this? We need this written down somewhere. I'm actually very interested to see. Like, I want to come back next year and see how we actually did.
All right. We'll make a poll on the video so people can give their votes. So, Troy, can you run down your five again?
Okay, so I have. Okay, I'll switch it. Steph Curry at point guard, Luka Doncic at shooting guard, small forward Cam Reddish, power forward Mitchell Robinson, and at center DeAndre Ayton.
All right. That is the starting five of Troy, and my starting five is I don't know who my point guard should be. Anyway, I guess interchangeable, or I don't know. But maybe Trey Young, point guard, shooting guard, Donovan Mitchell, small forward Zion Williamson, power forward Michael Porter Jr., and center, yeah, Kristaps Porzingis.
Your team
So
sounds pretty good.
I don't know who would win a 5-on-5, but we'll never know. But we will
Michael
know.
Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is eating Mitchell Robinson alive. He's too like my spacing. DeAndre Ayton and Mitchell Robinson is like pretty tough spacing. So I think I have to give it to you.
Okay, thank you. But in terms of price gainers, we will see next year. Let's get back to this when the time comes. But yeah, I think that about does it. Before we head out, do you have anything you would like to promote and plug in before we head out?
Um, Once again, check out my YouTube guys. Trike 415 Sports Cards. I like to do like a lot of analysis. It's not too boring. I don't talk about Excel spreadsheets as much as I talked about during this podcast. But if you're looking for picks, and also like I love to engage with you guys on there. Sometimes it's kind of hard, like on Instagram and Twitter. Um, Especially getting lost in like basketball stuff. But if some of you guys like literally you just want to come talk about sports cards, make sure to stop by the channel. I would love to talk with you guys and have you be a part of the community.
All right, there you have it. Where can people follow you on Instagram and Twitter?
Instagram is Troy Rike. Twitter is also Troy Rike. And if you're looking, I have a special Instagram card account that has not been promoted on my main Instagram. So little sneak peek right here. It's Trike 415 cards on Instagram.
All right, there you have it, guys. Troy Rike. Please follow his YouTube channel because I also watch his videos. And yeah, if you do love the information that he dropped on this 1 hour podcast, you would love his channel as well. And yeah, don't forget to follow his socials. And of course, for My Valuable Player, yeah, it's the same: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, My Valuable Player. Don't forget to follow us. And for the channel, of course, we're trying to grow the podcast. Yeah, we're dropping an episode weekly every Friday at 8 p.m. So yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we have an exciting episode as well next week. And yeah, that about does it. Thank you so much once again, Troy, for coming on the show. It's been an honor just learning from you.
Thanks, man. It was great to be on here. I just love the hobby so much, and it was great to have this opportunity to talk to you about it. So thanks again for having me.
All right, there you have it, guys. Once again, Troy Rike, and that is a wrap. Thank you so much. And once again, I'm Justin Alvarado. Peace out. Take care. Thank you so much for watching. If you dig that video, please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. And last but not least, don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any video.